Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, if you're like me, if you struggled with mental health issues, this episode is for you. If you stay till the end, my brother Tim is actually going to talk to you about some things that you can actually use to improve your mental health today. And he's also going to give some resources for you and your battles. So I just wanted to say, Tim, thank you for coming on. And this episode is actually brought to you by my new book, just hit #1 on Amazon. And if you stay till the end, I'm going to offer you the book for $3. It's taken me 11,000 hours and over $100,000 to build this book. So for you, you get it for $3. So Tim, my brother, guys, if you don't know Tim, one of my favorite people, has a heart of gold. He's a speaker, trainer, mentor, veteran. He's the Swiss Army knife of positivity. Tim, my brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. I really appreciate it. I love your energy, and I'm definitely going to use the Swiss Army analogy in the future. Congratulations on your book. I am also going to purchase that today. You gave me a free copy of your other ebook. Love that. And I'm going to read this one. And you mentioned struggling and everything that's going on. Sometimes I struggle with my demons. We wrestle. Sometimes we just cuddle.
I get it. So, okay, before we even get started, my first question is, what is Tim's definition of resiliency? Because knowing you, knowing your story, it hasn't been all sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, and Skittles. So talk to us about your definition of resiliency.
Richard, I love that you start off each podcast with that question. And for me, it's a little different because I lost my dad when I was 5 years old. He served in the Army like we did, but after his service to our country, he served our community as a police officer. Sadly, 18 months into his service, he was killed in the line of duty. I was 5. I put up the number that my hand, that way all the Marines know what number we're talking about. Just a little love in between the units there. My life changed that day. It changed also the way I see the world, because we grew up in my grandmother's basement, where the window was this small, kind of like the one you look at the St. Louis Arch. So at age 12, I remember distinctly at age 12 having the cake out there, and my mom asked me, she's like, "Wish for anything you want, Timothy." And I wished, and I've wished for the same thing every year, Richard. And it's the ability to overcome any obstacle in my way. And that's my best definition of resiliency.
All right, so let's hop into DeLorean. Let's go in the Wayback Machine. You know, because me growing up, I grew up in an abused household, and you read about that in my book. But for me, my solace was reading, and I've read over 6,000 books now. But as a 5-year-old, that's how I dealt with life. I figured if I picked up a book, I can go anywhere I want in the world. I can transform. So
you nailed it. So you just went to the local library?
Well, I would do that. And then my mother was a nurse. So I would read the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Hold on. Time out. Did you guys have the traveling sales guy that came through and sold you the Encyclopedia Britannicas and had those?
Yeah.
Same. We could
and
only
afford. And my mother was a nurse. So at 5 years old, I was reading about anatomy, physiology. I would read nursing books. So I would read anything I could just to get away from my life. So what was your what was your coping mechanism, if you could remember that far back?
We have a lot of parallels. In fact, we had the salesman that came by, but we were poor. We couldn't afford the OR on poor. I know in your ebook, you said you guys were dirt poor. Y'all had dirt? When the guy came by to sell the encyclopedias, I think it was A through L is what we got for the first series, and we couldn't afford the entire one. And so I read all of those, and my mom was smart enough to know that this guy with all the energy would not stop until I had focus. And so she really helped me out. I know back then I would have been prescribed tons of drugs if I had gone to the doctor and said, hey, you have ADHD, ADD, the whole alphabet. But mom put me into a summer reading program because after dad died, we moved from St. Charles, Missouri, which is right near St. Louis.
Yeah.
It goes straight down the Mississippi or Highway 55 to the Boot Heel of Missouri, and a little farming community in New Madrid County. It was the city of New Madrid. And my grandmother lived less than 2 blocks away from the New Madrid County Library. Well, look out, because you could check out 2 books at a time. And I went and I read those books, and I must have read each book 10 times. And I went back the next day because we went on a Friday, went back on Saturday, read the books, and she's like, oh, you read these books? I said, yes, ma'am. So I got 2 more books, read those. But it was closed on Sunday, so I read and I kept reading. I memorized the books, and I loved it. But I was 5, so a lot of pictures were involved. Loved the comic books because, like you could just enter in a whole new world. And for me, when I started seeing the pictures, man, I saw just a different world. Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, where you could have these powers. And Batman, let's just face it, he was just badass, and he didn't have any powers except for being rich, right?
Yep. And for me, growing up, my favorite superhero was Aquaman. I'm a big Aquaman dude, so
okay,
because he's totally different. He's a totally different kind of. Nobody wanted to hang out with Aquaman. He wasn't a dick magnet. He just hung out with the fish.
No, so you love the OG Aquaman because the one today, I mean, long hair, badass, yelling, tattooed. He's totally different than the Aquaman talking to fish only, right?
That was my guy, yeah. So you go from 5 and then you go to 12. Now everybody knows Missouri is called the Show Me State. So what was the thought process when you turned 12? That because you had your mom, which she had to be mom and dad, but then you had your dad that was a true American hero. So what made you, when you hit that birthday cake at 12, what was the thought process? How did that all become?
Again, we have a lot of parallels because your mom, like mine, loved to play Wheel of Fortune. She would just spin the wheel, and wherever it landed, that's the guy she wound up with. I talk that from experience, and no disrespect to your mom, but my mom, her picker was broken. She was married 5 times in her life, twice to the same guy. He was still a loser. And the last guy that she wound up marrying, I'm sure he had great attributes. I cannot recall hardly any of them because the bad times really stuck out. He was so abusive that I learned at an early age, which was before 12, and that's where this predisposes that I found out if I let him treat me like a punching bag, that he wouldn't put my mom, who was 105 pounds, back in the hospital. There's only so many times you could fall down the imaginary stairs and break something before people ask questions. And she hit her limit. So at 2 times going to the hospital where he broke her zygoma, broke her nose, and he broke her wrist. Finally, some family members stepped in, and I was looking around. Where are the heroes? Where are the protectors? Where are the people that are supposed to step in? And I was so angry at the world because I'd given up everything. My dad's life was taken away, and we were taken away from our friends up in the St. Louis area. We quickly adapted and made new friends, and I found love of nature as well. But I never got to be a kid the way the other kids did because I, like a lot of other fictitious people, I had to wear a mask. I had to be an actor early on. My stepfather, and I'll never mention his name because he's still alive, and he has changed somewhat. But he was such a narcissist at that time. Instead of a giver, he was the one who took. He was always looking for a shortcut. He never respected the diversity that God made for us, and he almost was always angry. Now, don't get me wrong. He went through his trials and tribulations, his anger and his loss. That was for him to deal with. He never did. He never got the help he deserved. So he continued that cycle of violence, neglect, and abuse. And because my mom was codependent, she latched on and she accepted the abuse. Now, she did not want that to go to us, but that wasn't her decision. That was his. And it was just my life was filled with so much anxiety. So I excelled at some things in school. I got in fights because again I had all this anger, and I quit getting in fights at school not because I was good at fights. I was horrible. I got my ass beat up all the time because I played prison rules. Go in and assert dominance. Except I was itty bitty guy, and I always got my ass whooped. And but if I got a fight in school, I got punished when I got home. I wasn't scared to get my ass whooped at school. It's just another day. But when I came home, my stepfather would not just beat me up. There was a form of torture, and he would be put in prison today if that came to light of what he actually did. And one of the instances, just to explain to people of what happened, weren't just beatings, because he wanted to see the pain. Unless he saw tears, he wasn't going to stop, or he was going to. He could not put bruises on me because then my family would see. So back in the day, you remember phone books. I mean, phone books were that thick. You could hit somebody with a phone book, and because it had such a large area, it wouldn't leave a bruise. So he had to do that or come up with a fun story of how I got my latest bruise. So I had to put that mask on, and I had to do the acting so he could get to that point. And it just turned off so many beautiful things in my life because the hunting, the fishing, the camping, stuff that I enjoyed with Boy Scouting and my friends, I didn't want to do with him. So I just came out of that. And so at age 12, as you asked, what did you wish for? I didn't wish to go away or do anything. I love my family. I loved where I was at in New Madrid. I just wanted to overcome those obstacles so I could be better and not have to go through that pain.
Okay, so let's take us to after graduating high school. Obviously, I didn't graduate. I'm a ninth grade dropout. But for me, it was either jail or the military. I did both. So, what drew you to the military? And then tell us your recruiting story, because everybody has a recruiting story.
First of all, congratulations. I'm reading your book. The words don't do justice. I love hearing your story, and I definitely want to talk to you more offline and hear more about your story because I know you've told it in the past on the podcast. But high school was awesome for me. I was never great at any of the sports. I played just about every sport, and I sucked at all of them. The only one I did pretty decent at was track and field. And that's because since I was 12, I could push a lawnmower and weed eat, and I could shovel snow and scoop up leaves and rake those and make money. Love doing that. At one point, had a nice little business from age 12 to 15 where I had other of my friends working for me. We go around the neighborhood, put people on a schedule. That was back in the day when somebody would actually hand you a check. So I would go get a check every month for all the stuff we were doing. And the goal wasn't to buy lavish things. I just wanted my own clothes. I didn't have a pair of Nikes till sixth grade, but I bought them myself. And they were a pair of used Nikes. I put toilet paper into the toe. And so those formative years really taught me how to earn $1. And at age 14, I found out that I could go work on one of the farms in the area. So there was cotton, there was wheat, there was corn, milo. They even had rice where they would flood the fields, and then catfish farms. And I found out I could go work on one of the farms, but I couldn't drive, and I couldn't ride my bike all the way out in the country. But what they would do is they would bring by a pickup truck, and they would pick up me and the other guys who didn't look like me, and we go out there and we work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We made $50 a day. That may not sound like a lot of money today, but back in 1986, when you're 14 years old, holy smokes, that was a lot of money. So I saved up all my money. I may have spent a little bit on carnival stuff, but I bought clothes. And then by age 15, I bought my first car. Couldn't legally drive it. That didn't stop me, but I had my first car and I've never stopped since then. And so high school was just more of that. I
All right, so
just,
I got to ask you, you know, because back then around that time, the St. Louis Rams were the greatest show on turf. Were you rocking the St. Louis Rams gear?
well, here, the Rams weren't there yet at that time. They came right after high school. It was all St. Louis Cardinals. And man, I tell you what, it was Cardinals and the Blues. So the ice hockey team. And I really wasn't into ice hockey that much, but the Cardinals, man, the state was kind of split in two because you got Kansas City Royals on one side, and then you got St. Louis Cardinals on the other side of the state. Everything was Cardinals, baby.
So you
But
were rocking the Mark McGuire quick gear?
you know what? I did love me some McGuire, and everybody knew he's on the juice. We didn't care. He was just spanking those homes runs out like Babe Ruth used to, right?
Yep.
Yep. So high school was awesome for me. I loved it because I would go to work at a local grocery store. It's called IGA, International Grocers
Yep.
Association.
I
And
know.
I would unload the trucks in the morning. So I get up at 5. Trucks are at 5:30. We'd be at school. Gosh, man, I want to say at 7:35, maybe 8 o'clock. Not sure. But anyway, from that time to that time, I unloaded the trucks, got changed, had breakfast, off to school. Either I had an after school program or I was back to work at IGA. Again, sports kind of rotated. The only thing I was really good at was running because I'd worked so much, rode my bike, pulling my lawnmower behind me. I had pretty good legs and I loved to work. And so running was awesome. I could either run against my classmates, the 400, 800, 1600, or I could run 4 laps around that track and be done. I go, give me some of that. And so that was awesome. And I remember running state my freshman year, and I loved it. And I did not break the 4-minute mile, but I hit a sub 5-minute mile. That was a pretty big deal back in the day for somebody 15 years old.
So
And
you were the white Roger Bannister? What are you trying to tell me?
man, I don't know about that. But my buddy Scott Parson, who lived in Scott City, and also good friends of my buddy TK, who lives up in Dallas, didn't know him at the time. We become fast friends now. The he was a senior, and when he crossed the finish line, kapow! You heard the gun go off, and again, I was like, "What?" I had just started my last lap. This guy almost lapped me, and he came this close to breaking Bannister's 4-minute mark. And I was like, that is so awesome. But I didn't know who it was until 4 years later when I went to this college, that college, this college, and wound up back at SEMO. He was the manager of Applebee's, and that was my first job in the food industry world. So when I transitioned high school straight to college, so New Madrid's here, state of Missouri, the college furthest away is Central Missouri State, was Warrensburg, and I went to Boise State at that time. My junior year, I was like, ooh, let me go all the way to get away from my stepfather. And whew, I loved it up there. It was a way I could reinvent myself, didn't have to worry about my past following me, had a great time. My mom
Okay,
got
okay, so let me ask you, because
yeah.
you're a smart dude. If you can run that fast, I'm sure that when you joined the military, you pretty much had whatever pick you wanted of MOSs. And if I got this right, you picked a combat medic.
Believe it or not, I served as a combat medic, but that's not what I chose. My mom, when she passed away right when I was in college, so at age 23, mom got sick again and she passed away, and she had a brain aneurysm. She went to sleep and then she never woke up. That's a great way to go when you're 93, but not when you're 43. So it was tough, and I spiraled, Richard, just like in the toilet, and I took more out of life than I gave. I would not want to be sitting across from that guy right now. I'm totally changed. But mom drilled it into me. Don't go in the police department. Don't go in the military. Don't go in the police department. Don't go in the military. So after she passed away and me spiraling, getting to almost rock bottom, I looked around and I needed direction and discipline again. Well, the library wasn't going to cut it this time. So I started volunteering at the Missouri Veterans Home. And there I met the first Black pharmacist in the state of Missouri. Mr. Taylor was 102 years old. He served in World War I, and I met guys and gals from every branch, and I loved their camaraderie. So over the course of the next year and a half volunteering, I said, I'm going to take the entrance exam. I did. And I could pick any job that I wanted. I picked linguist. Actually, I picked interrogator. So I had a dual MOS, 97 Echo Lima. So I had to go through 2 AITs. But I screwed up. And this is just showing my hubris. On the sheet, because I had to fill out those little tiny bubbles on the sheet. Didn't matter which test you were taking, there's a bubble filler. And so I'm filling in the bubbles on the language exam. And in my haste, I turned over the page. Richard, I missed the first line. I totally just blew it off. So it should be number 51. Well, I started at 52. And I'm answering all the questions like, man, I freaking nailed this stuff because it was patterns and symbols. And I was like, I got this. It really wasn't much language. It's more cognitive and being Sherlock Holmes than anything else, except I was more Watson. I missed that first line, and I was like, dadgummit. And I looked up at the time. We had less than 5 minutes, and I had all of these questions to go through again. I'm like, hey, I missed the first one. Can I get an eraser? Because I had already worn out my eraser. So the instructor came over, somebody in uniform, and I erased all the stuff, then hurriedly, and then I was filling things back out because I could see the faint bubble that I filled out before. So I'm just following that. And then the proctor says, you got 1 minute, and then pencils down. And I was like, oh, shit. And so I was like, C. So I filled it out, and I was like, well, I flunked it. And they're like, you passed. And I was like, oh. But they wouldn't give me, I wanted French or Persian, Farsi, Arabic, something I could use overseas, even German. And they gave me Spanish. And so I went to DLI, Defense Language Institute, which is the old Fort Ord. It's over in California.
Yep.
Great place to go. Love that. But they gave me Spanish. They wouldn't let me change or retest. And I go, I don't want Spanish. And I was like, let me just change, take it again. They're like, no. And so I took Spanish. I was making A's. And then I found out what the interrogators do exactly. And I was like, nah, I really want to change MOSs. And they wouldn't let me. But finally, I talked to my colonel, and he's like, Tim, I don't think you'd be a good interrogator anyway. Let's find you a different MOS. And that's when I became a combat medic.
All right. So you 4 years, 8 months. Is that right?
Man, you got it down, man. That is awesome. You read my DD 214?
Bro, when I'm having somebody come on, I spend about 10 hours just going through their stuff. So talk to us.
Good show up, man. That's nice.
That's why they call me the G.I. Joe Rogan or the male Oprah. So talk to us because, you got there, and then, most people, they do 4 years, they do 6 years, 10 years, 20 years. Not many people do 4 years in 8 months. So talk to us about what happened and what your thought process was at 4 years, 8 months.
Well, like a lot of civilians, if they're listening, they'll hear those earmarks, and they'll be like, wow, why'd you do that one? Well, we who served always make it sound like a prison sentence anyway. I did 5 years. I did 10 years. I did 20. I did 4 years, 8 months, and 3 days. For me, I was good for 4 years. And so for anybody that signed a contract back then, I'm not sure where it is now, but you signed up for 8 years. So if you do 4 years active, you got to do 4 years inactive reserve, IRR. Or you can go full reserve or AGR, active guard reserve. And so I picked the 4 and 4, got a nice little bonus, very happy with it, saved all my pennies. And when I got to my first duty station, they sent me to Germany. Love bomb holder, commonly referred to as the Rock. Whoop! And not me, the place. And I loved it because when I wasn't in the field with 1-6 or 2-6 infantry, because I was a 47th FSB, Forward Support Battalion, I was in the field a lot, but I traveled as much as I could. And I had the best leadership there. I mean, my platoon sergeant, Rick Watson, we're still good friends and I met so many amazing men and women that served as medics and support staff. Because in the Army, the joke is you're either infantry or infantry support. I was the support. My company commander, Captain Katie Hanna, we're still great friends, and her husband. And then my battalion commander, Colonel Arardi. I remember them because they were totally different than I thought the Army's leadership would be. They showed me how to be strong and intelligent and versatile, how to be resilient. And it always reminded me of Bruce Lee. And it's not like they knew martial arts, is that Bruce Lee always talked about being water because the water becomes the glass, it becomes the vase, it becomes part of the stream. Become like water and be that versatile. And I love that one. And so I adopted that. And again, I was 27 when I entered the military. So it wasn't like I could run as fast as the 17-year-olds that just came in alongside me. I did good for my age group, but I simply couldn't outrun them and outperform them. Different PT scores or metrics, if you will. And so I did well. I never got to a 300. I got to 298. I missed it by one sit up, and I never could duplicate it. But when we deployed to Kosovo right after K4, we were at Red Base and Blue Base, or Camp Bondsteel and Camp Monteith, and I bounced in between the two. I knew that I did not want the Michael Moores of the world. I don't know if he's still relevant, but he was one of those Hollywood jerks that called everybody who served baby killers. And I was like, I'm a medic, man. I got these magical medical hands. I want to save some people. And because per the Geneva Convention, I had to help anybody. So if they came into our camp, whether it was an enemy combatant or one of our guys or gals, I had to work on them, just like they did in MASH TV show. And I was like, let's do it. But I knew I wanted to bring that energy to the table and some positivity along the way because it was going to suck. We had just lost one of our guys in Germany. He drowned in Lake Bosselsee. It was bad because Sergeant Johnson was a really good guy. He was a staff sergeant. And it was such a dark time in our company and our battalion because he left a family behind. And we were not supposed to deploy until after Thanksgiving. Well, DOD doesn't care about your feelings. You'll learn that pretty quick in the military. And so instead of deploying between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we got pushed up. And so that means we deployed before Thanksgiving. So we missed Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all that other good stuff, while the other guys and gals got to come back. I knew morale was going to be in the crapper. So I started writing all of these celebrities. And wonderfully enough, they started writing back. Because, when you deploy, you get free mail, right? All you have to do is write free mail and where the spot you put a stamp. So I put a form letter together, but I signed every one of them. And I got all the Hollywood addresses, Studio City, New York. Anytime I could find an address for a famous person, I wrote them. And the majority of them wrote back. That was awesome. So I made a deal with my command sergeant major, my first sergeant, captain, and battalion commander that I will be the boss representative. Even though I was married, had a little girl on the way, I would be the better opportunities for single soldiers while I was there. And so I collected probably about $160,000 worth of stuff, and I gave it all away. And we would play Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, trivia. So when the guys and gals came back from the blue base, red base out in the field, they could come to Camp Monteith. They could play one of those games, take home a custom set of golf clubs, a scooter, a computer, all these autographed stuff. And I had so much fun. But my drug deal was with the leadership is that I wanted to change the CID, and that's where I switched to when I moved, and that's why I got stop lost right after 9/11. So I served that off time. Because when we went to the sandbox over in Iraq, there was no time schedule. They got you until they didn't need you anymore.
All right, so let's talk about. We don't talk about war stories and shit. People can go to Jocko for that.
That's right.
I don't want to talk about that, but what I want to talk about is like my friend Sergeant Nick in one of my groups talks about is once you step off base and you're no longer in the military doesn't give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing. You don't have a mission. If a lot of us, if we only did 5 years, 10 years, we don't have pension, we don't have money coming in. And a lot of us, like me, end up looking at the bottom of a bottle or the end of a barrel. So, what was your military transitioning like?
Man, deep breaths. If you can't tell, I'm taking deep, mindful breaths right now because when I transitioned back, I was stop lost. And so after they kept me, my second daughter was going to be born, and I missed her birth at Fort Hood. And Jacqueline's equally as beautiful and intelligent as Amber, but I wasn't there for her birth. And it's one of the factors that led to my divorce with her mother because I'd promised this beautiful woman that I'd always be there for her. Well, I took her halfway around the world, and the Army took me back away from her and did not put the support system in there. And I love my regular family from Missouri, but none of them came down to support my wife at the time during her pregnancy when I was gone. A little resentment from that, but that was, I should have emphasized more of how much I needed them. But you're in the Army, you're supposed to be strong and not have to talk about your feelings. I should have been more vulnerable and communicated better to my family of how much I needed them, how much my wife needed them there in my stead. The family readiness groups had just started, and they were rocky at first, at the best. But you're right. Once I got out of uniform, it was a show, and that was a shit show, especially for me because it's like you go to high school, get your diploma. You go to college, you get your diploma, and once you're done, what's your next goal? Where are you going? What are you going to do? And that was me. And so back in the day when Fourth ID was transitioning out, I was out of uniform and I was transitioning when my brothers and sisters were still deployed. So there were no big job fairs. There weren't any big industries looking because Fourth ID was gone. And as soon as we came back, First Cav went out because Fort Hood could house 5 units. And I don't know why base realignment and closure of BRAC took Fourth ID away, but politics, right? So, but the units would transition very fluidly, do the right seat ride and make sure things were great there, but not back in the community. It was so hard on everyone. And so when I got out, a little salt in the wound was that I lost a good friend of mine. Corporal Heath Pirtle was one of our guys who was mortally wounded. When I came back, he was still there, and I gave his eulogy. And I had been out for a hot minute, and I'm looking at his widow in the front row at the service, and she's 7.5 months pregnant with a little girl that would never see her father. And my life changed like that, Richard. And I knew I had to do more to help support others. And I was going to persevere, and I was going to be resilient no matter what. So becoming water, I was as fluid as I could. And I went to work for my mentor before I was deployed. I had that transition time, but then they took me away. And then when I came back, he had 33 companies. He had already filled that position. And so I didn't have that one. So my first job was at a car rental company. Here I was on my road getting my college education, had almost 5 years of the military in my belt. The best job I could get is vacuuming out cars at a rental place. And I did the best I could, but it was very demeaning. And I said, no, I can do more. And so I went back to my mentor. He's like, are you done using your hands? You want to use your head and your heart instead? I said, yes, sir. He's like, great, let's get busy. He's like, join Toastmasters, join your local chamber of commerce, and join Rotary. He's like, get involved in your community and become the person that people need around them. Become that leader, and that people will see.
Can I stop you for a minute?
Yeah.
Just because something you said. When I lost my vision, my hearing got a lot better, and I'm able to hang on certain people's words. And the book by Napoleon Hill is called Think and Grow Rich. It's not called Work and grow rich. It's not called hustle and grow rich. And I think your mentor, which I want to talk about in a little bit, he told you to think. And I think that if we think more, even like when I go to AA, that's one thing that they have on their posters is think, think, think. That we can get more done in quiet time, listening for that small, quiet voice, thinking than we'll ever do vacuum out cars, right?
Absolutely. You got it. And it's funny that you mentioned Napoleon Hill, and it looks like my screen has frozen. Is it mine or is it yours?
It's mine, but don't worry about me. Nobody needs to see my ugly mug.
So I sought out my mentor because I knew what I knew, and it got me to this level, which was better than I arrived. And I'm very grateful for the direction and discipline that I got in the military, through the drill sergeants at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, to every one of my NCOs, whether they are above me or below me, Sergeant Pimentel, Sergeant Green, Sergeant Hunter, just amazing people. And one of my buddies, he's now command sergeant major over in Hawaii, and he just got a promotion. Love that he is on such a great trajectory. But when Paul told me of what he was doing, I'd done my due diligence like you do on your speakers. I did it on him, Ross Perot, and Drayton McLean. Well, Paul J. Meyer is the only one that wrote me back and connected with me. And when he passed away at age 83, he left an estate of around $2.5 billion. That's with a B. That's pretty good for somebody who used to jump out of perfectly good airplanes, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Just make sure you're still there.
Yep.
And so he learned directly he was one of the mentees of Napoleon Hill. And he had also contacted some of these other greats, and he authored some books, I think 13 different books, but he also purchased the right to reprint some stuff from Napoleon Hill and others. And he drilled in me the space repetition that we need to create the life we want to. And that meant going inside, just delving in, and then pulling out what you want to do and being laser focused on what you want. And it changed my world. Again, I got to see with brand new eyes of what was going on. So in short order, I created the Army Wall of Fame. I created Kolenc.com, neither one which are still up. I sold both of those companies off. But I kept the Stroud Marketing Group, and then I started building charities to give back. Now, I want to tell you how Paul kicked me in the ass and showed me such a great life lesson. Here I'm talking to a billionaire in his house, and he has 33 people on staff in his estate. And he owned, I think 34 cars that were in his garages. 90% of them were 1936 Fords restored to their original condition. Just an amazing guy. But if you met him on the street, you probably wouldn't recognize him because he wasn't flamboyant. Besides, he had a really nice Rolex, or he had several of them. Besides that, you wouldn't know of what he is, what he does, and how much money he's worth. But he would show me how to move forward and how to use the space repetition on everything. And he taught me such a lesson when I'm sitting down with him, because he mentored me sometimes once a week, sometimes once a month for 7 years. And at that time, he made $5,600 an hour, 50 hours a week, whether he worked or not. So pretty good payday. We're sitting down. He's like, Tim, you keep telling me you want to start a charity in your dad's name. He's like, man, I just want you to, let's pause. Come help me find something in my book. He's old school. He's flipping through his calendar. He's like, hey, I want you to help me out find one day. I'm like, okay, we're looking. I didn't see it. We all get all the way to the back of the calendar. He's like, let's start over. Tim, focus. I want you to help me find one day. And I said, Paul, let me ask some qualifying questions. Is it a birthday? Is it an anniversary? Is it the grand opening for a new company? He's like, no, I told you, one day. So we're flipping through it. Linda Peterson walks by, and she's the one who really connected me to Paul J. Meyer. And she's laughing. Well, I didn't hear a joke. So that means I am the joke. And I was like, all right, Paul, what is it? He's like, Tim, you keep telling me one day you're going to start that charity to really fulfill something in your dad's name. Where's it at? He's like, I don't see it on the calendar. At this point, I'm crying. I'm just so disappointed in myself because I kept telling myself that lie. One day I'm going to do that one. He's like, are you ready to do it? Make this day one? I said, yes, sir. So we wrote out a business plan for the charity. And then he asked me an important question. He said, how much will it take to fund your dream and your charity? Richard, I didn't do any due diligence. It was totally on me. 100%. I messed that up. He said, how much? So I pulled out of left field. I said, $2,000. He's like, okay. He's like, hey, Jane, that was his wife, bring me the checkbook. And she said, which company? And he's like, our personal account. And she said, oh, okay. So he writes out a check, and I'm like, man, here comes the fattest check I've ever received. Here it comes. And he's like, Tim, I'm going to give you half of what you asked for. He's like, what are you thinking? And I'm thinking, I should have asked for a whole lot more money, Paul. And then we started laughing. I said, basically, I asked a billionaire for the change in his car or in his couch. And he's like, yeah, you should ask for a whole lot more. He's like, before I give you this check for $1,000, I want you to match it. All the blood ran out of my face. Richard, I just transitioned out of the military. I'm working my ass off. I'm just now getting on the right trajectory. And I didn't have $1,000 to spare for my dream. And it's just a sad state of where I was financially and mentally. And he's like, what are you thinking? I was like, Paul, I'm thinking I don't have $1,000. He's like, you don't have $1,000 for your dream? Something that's going to change your life. You don't have $1,000. Again, I'm crying again. I said, no, sir, I sure don't. He's like, Tim, do you have $100? I said, yes, sir, I sure do. So he handed me the check, and he's like, I want you to go get 9 other people that are as passionate as helping out in the community that you are. They're your board members. Start there and then build. And he gave me a list of names of people to call after I had secured the other money. And now we've given away, I think, $1.5 or $1.6 million to police officers and their families in their time of need, because somebody held my feet to the fire and showed me how to dig deeper within myself and be creative and build something. And now I've got another charity called Stay Tuned for Veterans, and we're just now launching this, and I couldn't be prouder of our team. Richard, you still there? Richard? I may have lost you. Hold on. Hey, Richard. It looks like it's still recording from my end. I'm going to call you, Richard. Oops. There. Oops. I think Richard's his internet may have pooped out on him, but we're still live, ladies and gentlemen. We may still be live. I'm not sure. We'll check this out. So, oops. All right. It says I'm still in the show, so hopefully Richard's going to come back and join us, and we're going to talk a little bit more. I mean, I've been talking, and kind of like some of the times I'm a keynote speaker, I'm giving a great presentation, but some people have unplugged, and we don't know if they're there or not, but I'm pretty sure that he's going to be able to pop back on. And so while we're waiting, I'll tell you a little bit about our charity called Stay Tuned for Veterans. We call it Stay Tuned for Vets. Now, we're chartered with the IRS as a nonprofit as Stay Tuned for the Arts, because anytime you use veterans in your nonprofit, you actually have to get a letter from the other, somebody who's congressionally mandated to be there to have that in your title. It's staytunedforvets.org. And let me make sure that I'm actually talking to somebody here, because it may be the internet on my end that's bad. No, I think I'm actually good. And we're waiting on Richard.
Can you hear me?
Hey, there you are. Welcome back to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Richard Kaufman, and we're going to talk to him about...
Now, if I could just get my camera to work, we'll be all right. But so my question, while we're talking, I believe mentorship is so important. But, for me, like whenever I watch Shark Tank, they're always saying, listen, I'm not going to get involved with my money if you're not involved if you don't believe in your own dream. So what was it like to have somebody that's a multimillionaire say, listen, you need to be involved in your own dream before I can get involved in your dream.
Yeah, if only he was a multimillionaire. He was a multi-billionaire. And that's I was just teaching at the one of the Pasadena middle schools. Hey, Colton, the Wonder Dogs here, and I was showing them how much $1 billion is, and if I give you $1 million, Richard, and I was like, boom, here's $1 million a year. How long will it take you to have $1 billion if you don't have to pay any taxes and you don't make any interest on your money? Well, it's not 100 years like most people say. It's 1,000 years. 1,000 years. That's amazing. And he had $2.5 billion, but he didn't do like this. He didn't go like Lord of the Rings, my precious. He said, I'm going to share this with as many people as possible. So he sponsored things at local universities, Baylor and University of Mary Hardin Baylor. Their campuses are filled with halls and auditoriums and rooms named after Paul and Jane Meyer because of their generosity. And he challenged me to do the same thing in the veteran community. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I'm just making sure that I am reaching out with both arms and encapsulating everybody I can to make sure we don't lose any veterans, especially to mental health. I mean, thankfully, the work that we've been doing over the last 20 years has moved the meter. I know those numbers are horrible when you look at them skewed on the different data sheets. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 22 veterans a day that we lose. But I truly feel having boots on the ground in the community that we're making a difference in the lives of both our veterans, active duty, and their family members, because mental health affects everyone. Say you're having a bad month in the military, that really affects your spouse or partner, and it definitely affects your kids because they're like my daughter's favorite cartoon growing up. They're SpongeBob. They soak up everything, whether it's good, bad, and different. They're going to pick up those habits from you, and you want to pass on the good ones and make sure they have a little bit better life than you had, right?
There we are. We're back.
Hey.
Okay, so let me, the reason I started this podcast, because I believe that if a first responder or a veteran has a mission again, they're less likely to take their life if they know, okay, I have a mission. I have people that are depending on me. I have a goal. And so talk to us about, because imagine if when you would have went to your recruiter's office and they would have said, Tim, all right, you have a shelf life. So let's start preparing you now for when you get out, because one day you're going to have to hang up this uniform. And we want to teach you to start having a mission even before you get out. So talk about how important it is to find a mission after you hang up that uniform for the last time.
Very important. And I wish more military members would read books while they're still there. I mean, you've read over 6,000 books, man. That is absolutely mind-boggling. I love that about you. Paul was also an avid writer and reader, and I would say I'm up there. I quit counting, but I still read 2 books a week, every week. And sometimes they're mystery, sometimes they're self-help, sometimes they're one by veterans, which are great. Some are not so great, the ones, but I love them because I get to learn about new people, and they do awesome stuff of just putting pen to paper. One of the books that changed my trajectory was Think and Grow Rich, like you mentioned, but also another one right alongside it is by George S. Clason, Clason. It's The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yep.
And the most important lesson I learned is that a portion of what you earn is yours to keep. And so if you can live on 80% of your revenue, that 20% you can save and invest. I used to think saving was the deal. No, if your money doesn't have overalls on it, if your money's not making you money, you have failed. Because if you start saving when you're young, when you're my age, and you're looking towards retirement closer to that than when you started, you want to kind of ease back on that throttle a little bit, not work so hard. And so thankfully, I listen to those lessons and I'm able to get that mailbox money, get some things going on. And for me, though, I I didn't see the programs in the military teaching those things. And so I took all the books that Paul gave me and I mixed in a little Dave Ramsey, a little Suze Orman, and some practical tools you could use. Started teaching this on post. And I said, you can't sell anything. I go, just because I have my insurance and investment license doesn't mean I'm selling anything. In fact, anybody I taught, I did not represent them. In fact, when I joined different charities, I made sure that we were teaching those classes. We partnered up with the VA and they gave us $1.2 million worth of iPad minis so we could use fintech, financial technology, of teaching our veterans to be better fiduciaries of their family. And it moved the meter. Now veterans are using their benefits with the Veterans Land Board. They're using their VA loan. They're using their GI Bill. They're saving. They're investing. They're starting coffee companies, podcasts. They're writing books, and they're saving that revenue, and they're investing back in themselves and into the community. And I absolutely love that. I have totally forgotten the question because I got off on a tangent. So you're going to have to repeat it, Richard.
But, and I wrote down, readers are leaders and learners are earners, and for me, my whole business started out with a little purple book by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lecter, which I've had them on the show.
A great book.
And I got one whole shelf. It's all purple.
Was that the 4 quadrants, or which ones were you talking about? Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
From Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all the way till the last book.
Oh, awesome.
But sometimes a lot of people think, well, I don't have a lot of money to take courses and I'm like, bro, Audible is $15 a month. You can get millions of books. Like I just downloaded Gary V's new book about day trading attention. $15 a month, and you can get the education of a lifetime. So your excuses really don't matter in today's age. If you got YouTube and if you can get Audible, you can get a BA in business for $15 a month.
Break it down, right? Barney style. You can even go more basic than that. Every county that I've lived in Texas, there's 254 counties. Every one of them have a county or city library. And last time I checked, it's free for veterans. And you can get the audiobooks. You can go old school. You can get the DVDs. You go even older. You can get those books, turn those pages. And I have to say, sometimes I actually just love turning the pages. And I'm a speed reader, so I use these 2 fingers and just knock them out. I find out so much more. Colton wants to say hi, buddy. You want to say hi? Colton, yeah? So Colton is one of 44 service dogs that we placed with one of the groups, Easter Seals of Greater Houston. He's over here. He wants some screen time. But you're right. Readers are leaders, and they will absolutely find something that wasn't written by anybody that is in their circle so they can learn and bring that back. And so I love the going to see live storytellers because I think storytelling is becoming a lost art. Yeah. And you have to be able to tell something. So you never make a point without telling a story. You never tell a story without making a point. And Paul taught me that facts tell and stories sell. Yeah, you got it. And that's one of the main things I taught when I was in school this week in Pasadena, just showing them how to be a great storyteller. Sometimes I get off on a tangent. I get excited, but I love listening to the TED Talks, the TEDx. I love that I live here in Houston, and Brene Brown is from here. I've heard her speak twice. And we have such amazing veterans that are finding their voices. In fact, we had a Toastmasters group that I got to help charter, and it's called the Veterans Voice. And from there, I have another podcast with HCC, and we inspire veterans to take that journey. Either it's pen to paper or it's finding those words, whether their English is their second language or it's one that they butcher on a daily basis because they never got the formal education and the tutelage to really string together those stories to make something amazing. And we've continued that with Stay Tuned for Vets. So anything that is classified under the arts. So dancing, singing, writing. In fact, we have a writing class that's coming out with Navy veteran Nate Wagner. And of course, I'll post those links as we go along. And it's just amazing that veterans and patriots, people who never served, that want to teach veterans. We've got another one that he is an Air Force veteran. He teaches how to draw your own comic book. He's been featured at the Houston Comic Con, which is coming up next week. So he has his own comic book. He teaches guitar, piano. He builds guitars. He also makes shillelaghs and walking sticks. So he's teaching those classes, hoping to open up the minds for other veterans and family members. So we put that into programs. Some of these classes, boop, they're one and done. So it inspired them. They say, that's not for me. Or others, they're like, I love putting this paintbrush and this paint, whether it's watercolor or oil. They're like, I like that because I can be creative. All the things that I was feeling when I was in Iraq or Afghanistan or Panama or Germany or Kosovo, I can put those on there and I can express myself. They may share it in the studio. They may share it with their family. They may just give it away to someone else. Like we're going to do this Thursday night. We're going to paint 25 American flags and we're going to give them away to veterans at the Veterans Home in Pearland through the Veterans Land Board. And then also for 4th of July, we're going to do the same thing at the VA. So we open this creativity, and I'm hoping in there I get to read some of the stories about the other veterans that live around us.
Okay, but then so let's talk about touch for a minute, because everything you've just mentioned, it involves touching, whether it's painting, whether it's woodworking, whether it's, petting horses, petting dogs. There's something about the human touch. And for me, even if I want to learn something, I write it out.
Okay.
It's more, pen. When you put pen to paper, magic happens. Exactly. I don't know what it is. It's if you write your goals down, you're going to hit them because it's going to bother you because you physically wrote them down. So talk about, especially now with how tech and, AI, but how important doing stuff is, how important it is to touch. Like even for me, when I'm with my bride and we go out, if I'm able to hold her hand, I'm having an amazing day because it's the touch that I need. So talk about the human touch.
Well, and thank you. And thank you for sharing. Before we started today, you were telling me more about Michelle and your 3 kids. And so thank you for sharing that story. And for me, like you, I'm tactile. I love learning like that. I want to take something apart and put it back together. Sometimes I don't put it back together the way it's supposed to. There's a few screws missing in that and maybe up here. But I was taught in the military, watch one, do one, teach one. And so that's what we do as well. But for me, it's the Rubik Cube of learning, is that you can tell somebody all day long, the algorithm, everything's behind it. You need to turn the top left, twist this and go there. No, I need to hold the Rubik's Cube. I need to know that there are a set amount of twists and turns and colors, is that this color is always going to be on the opposite side of this color in the middle because you've got the cornerstones there. I love that one. So we mix everything in. People learn on a different level and they learn different ways. And we teach them, find your path. What's the best way that you learn? If you have a little bit of dyslexia or a lot of it and you can't read, great. Get those audio books and really do some stuff. Become a master storyteller. Before we had paper, that's the traveling bards would go around telling and selling their stories because they would read, or somebody would tell them Aesop's fables or something over in Germany. And then they would come here. They would pass those stories down, become an expert storyteller. TED, their conference, they're filled with them, and they have less than, was it 15 minutes, 17 minutes, something like that?
Now it's down to 12 minutes.
12 minutes to tell something that totally reaches in and captures you to where you're like, yes, I want some more of this. Who has not heard of Simon Sinek? He was an unknown before Ted, right?
Yeah.
And now everybody's asking, what is your why? And so find the way that you learn best and take action on it. Take massive action on it. I mean, Gary Vee is awesome at this as well. And the more I read about the people who get stuff done, the number one podcaster in the United States is Joe Rogan. And he used to be an extra on TV and then filled in a voice from time to time. He leveraged that to his own TV show, from now his own podcast. And he takes this mentality as well. If it can be done within 2 minutes, do it now. Don't put it off. If you're walking that way, find out what flows that way. Do you need to take your camera, your glasses, your coffee cup to that room? Small things matter. So make sure that your life has flow and that you're being definitively purposeful with your actions, and it all adds up.
And, and something that I learned from my brother, Russell Brunson, was if I really want to learn something, I'll buy the physical book and I'll get the Audible book and read and listen at the same time.
Man, nailed it.
And for me, it just, because I'm getting all the Audible, I'm getting the visual. So if you guys want to learn something fast and retain it, that'd be something great that I would probably recommend.
Yeah, I heard David Goggins speak, and I bought his book, and he autographed it, and I didn't even want to crease it, but I read it, and it was good. I mean, I'm sorry. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 9. I really enjoyed everything. What made it a 10 for me is when I got the audiobook version of it, the podcast, blew my freaking mind, because now I got to hear the other guy read it and talk to him in between the chapters and find out that secret sauce. Man, I still get goosebumps when I think about that, because that made it a 10 for me. I don't see how you would get any better than that series. And so if you haven't read or listened to You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, you got to go read the book and then listen to it on the audiobook and just immerse yourself in it. And it's kind of like binging something. You won't stop. You want a little bit more of it. And then that process, you get motivated. You don't have to run a marathon or an ultra marathon or wrap your bloody feet like he did and do something insane, but challenge yourself and do just a little bit more today than you did yesterday and watch yourself grow.
And, the one thing about that book, and then we'll go on, we'll talk about Stay Tuned for Vets, is when he shit himself in the bathroom and his wife had to clean him up.
Yeah.
And he didn't quit. And she told him, you better not quit. And I think when you have somebody strong like that in your life, it keeps you from quitting. Because I was ready to quit podcasting a week ago when my friend took his life. And my wife said, you better not quit. So I think that brings me back to David's story when he actually shit himself. And she cleaned him and got him back on the road again. So I just wanted to, if you don't know that book, you don't know that story, just for that, you need to pick up that book.
You know what? It shows a true testament of about your character and your wife's as well. And so how long have you and Michelle been married?
I've known my wife 40 years.
So just trying it out to see if it's going to work.
And the first time she ever met me is when I mooned a priest. And then I joined the military and we got back together for a second time. So it's her fault that we're back together twice.
That is hilarious.
She took me twice.
That shows that you guys share humor, but you're equally yoked. And I think that is very important when you're looking for a partner. And it's one of the reasons I'm single. I'm such high energy. I don't need somebody as high energy as me, but I need somebody that is close. Either they could be higher, they could be a little bit lower, but you have to have that right mentality and values. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And people say, it's 50-50. It's not. It's 100-100. You have to bring 100% of you. You have to bring all the great things that you offer in life. And just like David Goggins, pun intended, you have to bring all the shitty things. If you're not willing to clean up after your spouse during an accident or something that happens to them, you're not with the right person. If you have to tell the person that you're with, whether it's your partner or as a business partner, if you have to tell them, that every day they have to load the wheelbarrow full of bricks, they are not the person to build with you.
And for me, and I always hear the 50-50. No, some days it's 100-0. I mean, there's been nights where I'm having cold sweats, I'm having
Yeah.
nightmares because of PTSD, and she's just holding me saying it's okay. And I'm
Man.
at 0 at that point. So
And
sometimes it's not 50-50, sometimes it's 100-0. So like you said, make sure if you want to, I think they said if you want to go fast, run by yourself. If you want to go far, run with somebody else.
I love that one. You're not at 0. 0 means you got nothing left in the tank. You got to at least have 5% in there. Otherwise, you're good. I mean, Goggins is just built differently. He's wired differently. He's just an anomaly. I love the guy. I wouldn't want to be the guy because I can't run and do that all the time. I do have an off switch and I have a meter, so I turn mine down during the day. There are times I turn it up to 11 because it goes that far. And that's it's a good transition to go into to stay tuned because not everybody wants to go to all the events that I go to. I moved downtown so I could be closer to the Rockets, the Dynamo, the Astros, but also the museums, the art, because I want to get veterans out doing things, touching things, watching things, going on tours, the bike tours, the walking tours. I'm not just looking, but absorbing the beauty that Houston has to offer. See both sides of the coin. See the beauty, the architecture, but also see the dirty side of Houston. Every metropolitan area has it, and I want to take this model and duplicate it and triplicate it in other areas. I want them to see the influence of architecture that came from Italy, France, Rome, Germany, and it wound up here in Houston because of the people who immigrated here. And I want them to get involved, whether it's
A lot
painting.
of people don't even remember that the Houston Rockets won back-to-back championships with Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon. So a lot of people don't realize that even the Oilers back in the day. Houston has a big, they have a very great history, and a lot of people don't even realize it unless they're history buffs.
Oh, absolutely. And for our goal, I mean, we have so many different groups that we volunteer work with, or some that we're not officially with, but we support what they do. One of those is the Veterans Tickets Foundation. It's commonly called to as Vet Ticks. And they're great. They provide the low cost or free tickets to all the events I just mentioned and more. And they do that. And what we do is that we want to make sure that when we take veterans, we partner up with the local VFWs, American Legions, DAVs. We get some of the guys and gals recognized at those games through one of my buddies, Hector Giron. But addition to that, we just don't want them going to the games. We teach them how to take the very best photos on their cameras, whether it's an iPhone, Android, Google phone. We teach classes on how to do that because the worst thing you do is go to an event, have this technology in your pocket, and never pull it out to use it or use it incorrectly. So we show them how to be creative, how to position themselves in front of the huge astronaut at Minute Maid Park, take the great pictures. So if you're going from dark to light or light to dark, of how to move the camera, because it does amazing things. The technology is wonderful, but also how to use your voice to record great and funny things. And hopefully we'll make that bridge for other groups. Imagine now if you're a veteran and you get to go to the game, but you're walking out on the orange carpet to get recognized, and you get to talk on the microphone, whether you're saying play ball or saying, ladies and gentlemen, entering into Minute Maid Park now is Sergeant Colton Stroud, and he is with his family today. And it's all before the game, doing fun things like that, teaching them to find their voices and do things, of taking their art that they've painted and putting up into the museums around town, and making sure that they're using that expressionism to find their road to recovery. Because
imagine just being able to go to Houston Texans, meet CJ Stroud, and actually pray with that man.
Oh man! And by the way, we're not related. Maybe fourth cousins, but not directly.
But how awesome! Because he is such an awesome young man.
He really is.
How awesome would that be to be able to go out and actually talk to CJ or actually pray with CJ. And I think that's where you guys are heading. I think down there you're going to be making difference culturally, but also helping veterans and first responders stay alive just by doing stuff like that.
Absolutely, and we've had we hit some pay dirt with the local. Well, I'll say the local. All the local radio and TV stations are working with us, which is awesome. We have some great friends of at the Bull. We've got Eric, George, and Mo. Just awesome people that help us out. And there's some other stations that are doing some great stuff. We've got some interviews coming up with them. Almost did a Carol Burnett pull on my ear for her mom. The other thing we've done. We've worked with the CW, Hulu, and Netflix to get veterans into film and TV shows. The Walker, which is a reboot of Walker, Texas Ranger, which is about what featured. Who did it feature?
Chuck.
And where did Chuck Norris get all of his kick-ass skills from?
Bruce.
Well, he learned from Bruce, but guess before he was even on TV, he got his skills because he was in the Air Force and he was stationed in South Korea.
I didn't know that.
Something to learn there. And then just north of that at Fort Hood, you had Hugh Hefner, Dave Thomas, and Elvis that served at Fort Hood when it was Camp Hood. Now it's Fort Cavazos. And I have autographs from Dave Thomas and Hugh Hefner. Both are neither.
And I got locked up in Fort Hood. See how that? see how it all comes. I got locked up on D Street. So
I love it.
How it all comes back.
Oh my goodness! You took hell on wheels that road for literal transition, and you're like, all right, let's do it. Let's go.
I mean, I went to every single club on Fort
Oh my goodness! So back to
Killeen, Texas.
So the TV stuff, we take veterans and we get them and their family members into the arts, and so Walker, which films in Austin, Texas, about 20% of their law enforcement, they hire active duty spouses and veterans to be in the show. And here in Houston, we filmed with the Netflix show Mo, which is about Mohammed Nahir. He's a comedian, great guy. And we put a good stream of veterans, put 3 veterans in that local production. So when season 2 hits, you'll see me and a few other veterans in there. And we had a gig up in Dallas doing up there, but it's so tough because we don't have the people in Dallas to support us like our team, but we're getting there. And we'll duplicate it in Dallas as well because we had to turn down gigs because we didn't have someone to coordinate. So if you're watching this and you want to volunteer in a major city and anywhere, we could use your help because we have the opportunities. We just need to vet the people that go in. Because when we send them to be an extra or in a TV show or a commercial, we train them up. So that way the production company or staffing company knows they're getting somebody who's going to be right place, right time, right uniform, right attitude. And we also give them the tools of success so they can literally hit the ground running. And we're looking forward to an amazing year. And we have some fun marketing stuff going on in Houston in very short order. So we'll get that out. Speaking of which, Richard, what size t-shirt do you wear?
I am a double X because I'm so jacked. No, I'm not. Yeah, double X. Yeah, that's the ticket. I'm jacked. Yeah.
I got it. All right, I'm gonna get you out one of our. I have one of the shirts. It's not an embroidered shirt. It's a t-shirt, and I'll make sure I get that out to you. And anybody else that wants to buy swag, they can go to our website. Stay tuned for vets.org. They can also see the classes that we have coming up. They can catch us on every social media platform that's out there. We're building the Chinese one just because it's there. I don't like it, but TikTok does reach a lot of the younger veterans. But we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and X, formerly known as Twitter. And
I just want to put this out there because I don't want to forget. I forgot I was even in a movie that's coming out.
What is it?
It's called Keep On Living, and it's about veteran suicide. It's coming out soon, but I just want to remind you guys that it's coming out. I totally forgot until you even mentioned being in a movie. And
what platform is it on?
It's going to be on. I think it's going to be everywhere. It's not out yet, but I know it's coming out. It's called Keep On Living. So, last question I have. You already answered a lot of it. But how do we get involved? Because sometimes people don't want to physically do anything, but they'll follow a page. They'll start following you. They'll get involved without getting involved until they're ready to get involved. So can you
Great.
please put those links out again?
Yeah.
So people can know, okay, maybe I'm not ready to physically do it, but maybe I'll follow your page. And then when I start getting more emotionally involved, that's when I'll actually come out to an event.
You
So
hit
can
it.
you put your stuff out again?
It costs nothing to support us. You can go to any of our social media links. So you look either for Stay Tuned for Vets or Stay Tuned for Veterans. .org is the official website, but we're listed on all of the social media platforms. Also give you our link tree. We'll post those in the comments. By liking and sharing that, as well as this podcast, of getting the word out that we want to be in your community. We want to work with your veterans at no cost to our veterans, of teaching them piano, guitar, voice, how to draw comics, how to do woodworking, how to be in TV and movie shows, or how to get their next gig right along Beyonce. But also, it will move the meter if we did have some financial support. And so if you go to our shop and you want to buy some of our swag, that's awesome. If you're like, no, I don't have 25 bucks for a t-shirt, got it. Donate $1. Give me $1 a month for a year. You would be surprised how much those pennies add up into dollars, and dollars add up into experiences for our veterans and their family members. But if there's an event you want to sponsor as well, like we have Paul Kurt and Associates out of Katy, they're sponsoring our event Thursday night, and they're going to pay for 16 veterans to go painting and have a great time with other veterans and donate those to other veterans. But if you've got a skill, anything that I've listed or anything that's under the arts, you know how to play the accordion, banjo, the jazz flute. I don't care what it is. If it's underneath the arts, capital T, capital A, let us know. It's info@staytunedforvets.org. And we would love to have your creativity inside us of our machine that we can duplicate and replicate in another area. We even do underwater filming. So we do videography and photography with the Waves Project. That's the other thing. Maybe we're not the organization for you. That's okay. If you want to volunteer and help veterans with their scuba certification, call my friends Jeff Picard over at the Waves Project. You want to come pass out food, you can join us over at Combined Arms on Ellington Field, or with Serve down in Galveston. You want to volunteer with women veterans, we have Camp Shield with Maggie Peterson, or Grace After Fire, or we've got some of the people that just volunteer. They're not part of anything, like Luz. She just goes out and she floats around and does stuff. But there's Dress for Success. There's career gear that helps out with clothing. Get in where you fit in, just like in the military. You know that phrase, right, Richard?
Yep. Well, brother, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm so grateful and humbled for your friendship. And hopefully we can build a generational relationship from this point on.
Absolutely.
And guys, like my t-shirt says, today I decide. And I end every show with a quote by Mr. Joel Osteen. He says, every day we wake up, we have a choice to be a victim or a victor. And if you listen to this show, you are no longer a victim of your past, but a victor of your present and your future. So thank you for always showing up. And Tim, brother, thank you so much for your friendship. I'm so grateful for you.
Man, I love you and I appreciate you. And I also want to thank two of my other veterans that hopefully they're watching. One is Bill Palco, Army veteran, and the other one is Bob Gephardt, Navy veteran. These Vietnam era veterans have really boosted me up through Rotary and in the community. I literally stand on the shoulders of giants as I'm able to go out in the field, and as well as Buddy Grantham, people with the city, Dr. LaShondra Jones. I'm just doing amazing stuff. I am thankful for you, and I'm going to share this and make sure more people know about your podcast, your amazing heart, and your ability to share with others.
I love it. And guys, remember, the book is now available, and I have autographed copies available for $30, and you get $1,000 worth of bonuses if you get the autographed copy. But if you just want the ebook, it's available for $3. And if you buy the ebook, you also get an hour of my time to help you with whatever you're struggling with. So if you want to start a podcast, just let me know. Write book down below, and I'll get you the information. Tim, my brother, thank you so much. I'm so grateful and humbled, and hopefully I can get out there to Texas and come and hang out.
Great. More great things coming. Stay tuned.
All right, brother. Be good.